Hey, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Empowerment Through Encouragement. And what I want to talk about today is learning to thrive and learning from those who have thrived. And what I want to present today is not just for those with ADD or ADHD. This is transferable to anyone across the board. And we get these ideas in our mind that when we meet somebody, we meet them where they are, not what they've actually gone through. And we get into this comparison game and this fear of missing out. And we get into the scarcity mindset. We begin to think that everybody else has something better than us, that their struggles, they haven't been visible. So we didn't think that they had a struggle. And this is where the mindset of imposter syndrome also comes about. And when you think you're either too much or you think you're not enough, it throws you into this turbulent time, and it really wreaks havoc on our mind and on our experience. And we begin to ask ourselves questions. Why can't we be more like someone? Or why can't we fit in? Why are we the oddball? And you can be the oddball without ADHD, because anytime you think outside of the box, you're the oddball. But I want to tell you that it's those that think outside of the box and think differently and think creatively and tap into that energy. They're the change makers. And you can be a change maker at home. You can decide that you're going to add some different elements to a recipe, and you come up with some fantastic dish. And as minimal as that may seem, it is the experimentation that we allow ourselves to express that we could actually become even a better version of ourselves, a different version of ourselves. So let me ask you a question. For those that have ADHD, you've been watching these series and you've been interacting with me on occasion. And I want to thank you for that. And I also want to say that if you know somebody that is experiencing this kind of experience, the fear of missing out or the imposter syndrome, or feeling like they're either too much or they're not enough, or they don't fit in, or they just can't find their niche, well, send them this podcast, have them comment on it, share it, like it. And I'm sure that there's at least one person that you can share this with. So I appreciate that. So, have you ever felt the need to just focus? Like you just needed to get in the zone, calm down, and stop being so distracted? What if I told you that that was actually the most brilliant and creative opportunity for you to see how you could change the world and how other people have changed the world by these minds that are constantly moving? You see, some of these people that I'm going to talk about today, they were told the same things. Instead of dimming their light, though, they decided to turn it up, and they leaned into the way that their brains worked. And this is what I'm encouraging you to do: is lean into the way that your brain works. Don't see it as a distraction. See it as an opportunity to see something different. You zoom out of your own life and then you zoom in. And as you do this, what I mean by that is that we could be on a tree and looking right at the leaf, and then we miss the entire forest. But if we zoom out and we get to where we can see the various trees and the various leaves and the various branches, we can kind of see the navigation that we're taking. Now, hopefully that didn't confuse you. But if it did, go back and re-listen to it, re-listen to it a little bit slower. But your brain works in different ways. And so as we zoom in and zoom out of our life, if we zoom in and zoom out of other people's lives, we begin to see that our heroes actually had moments where they were a zero, where they felt like a zero, where they felt like the littlest one, the runt of the litter. And they actually turned that into their superpower. Well, today I want to cover 5 different people, and they have incredible stories. And maybe you don't know their stories. We've seen them in the spotlight, but we don't know the back history. Excuse me. And one of the things that I want to say is that we know people from where we meet them. And this can be a dangerous, slippery slope because we can envision that a person that when we meet them didn't have any issues, didn't have any problems. We meet them when they're on what we appear or seem to be as a altogether state. Like they've just got it going on. And how could they possibly connect with me? How could I possibly be like them because they're so far out of reach? Well, we end up judging ourselves from where we are to where they are, and we don't realize that there's a gap between where they started and where we meet them. And I want to encourage people to have that. So it doesn't matter if you have ADHD or not. That is a simple principle that we need to take into account. Don't judge yourself where you are today compared to where somebody else is and the road that they've traveled, because we don't know what that is. So I want you to think about ADHD in a different way and think of it in a way that it can actually change the world. So I want to talk about Justin Timberlake. Now, you might know him as a Grammy award winning musician, an actor, even a dancer that dominates the stage. He's got electrifying performances, and he entertains the people that observe him. And I'm sure there are star-studded fans that are just mesmerized by it. But maybe what you didn't know is that he has been very open about his ADHD and how it played a role in his performance, in shaping who he is, in shaping his career. You see, Justin spoke about this and his mind constantly moving and always jumping from topic to topic, idea to idea, never really focusing on one thing. It was always jumping from one thing to the next. And, when you are listening to somebody talk and they're telling you about all their fancy ideas, and they're going to live in a mansion, and they're going to drive this kind of a vehicle, and they're going to work in this kind of a place, and they're going to do these things. And you say, if you just pass the biology class, let's just get there. And they're thinking of in the future. They're thinking differently. You see, Justin Timberlake didn't just stay in one lane. He became a multi-talented artist, thriving in music, film, and business. And what he attributes to his success is his ADHD-fueled creativity and adaptability. And it helped him stand out in an industry that rewards originality. So think about this for a moment. Have you ever felt like your brain just moves too fast? Or maybe you have so many passions that you don't know where to start. What if, instead of trying to suppress it, you actually leaned into it? What if that constant stream of ideas that are coming in were actually your greatest gift, allowing you to see the connections of possibilities that others miss? Think about that for just a moment. Now, anybody that works with me knows that I am constantly and a never-ending learner. And I am constantly and developing my mastery in understanding what's going on in the brain, the body, and how our breath works, and how all muscles are connected to one another. And, I'm never bored. I don't have any moments of boredom. I really don't. Why? Because I want to hone my craft. I want to learn it. And understanding that we're so intricately connected and all of the ideas and the way that my brain works, I appreciate who I am even more now than I did a year ago, and even more now than I did 10 years ago. All these puzzle pieces begin to fit together. So I want to encourage you to tap into that, to press into that, to go with the flow of who you are. And I want to talk about that a little bit more. Now, can you imagine how actually your ADHD could be an advantage in high pressure situations? So picture this. You're in a high stake courtroom where every second counts and your brain has to work at lightning speed. Sounds intense, right? Well, welcome to the world of David Neilman, the founder of JetBlue Airways. He struggled in school because of his ADHD. Check that out. Here's a guy who is the founder of JetBlue Airways, and he struggled in school. You're going to find out that your heroes, they really have more in connection with you than you have given yourself the ability to tap into, to explore. So David struggled in school because of his ADHD. But once he stepped into this high pace, fast decision making occupation, everything clicked. He realized his ADHD brain was not a curse. It was actually his greatest advantage, because under pressure, he could see things and he could problem solve. Actually, even better when he was under pressure than when he wasn't. And that's what led him to revolutionize the airline industry. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like you were a faster thinker than others? Like your brain just sees solutions before the problem arises? This is where I talk about being proactive instead of being reactive. See, if we only react to the situation at hand, we'll just stay in this cycle over and over and over. But if we think outside the box, if we think about what could happen as we're building a project, as we're building a company, as we're presenting a presentation, what are the things that could go wrong? And be prepared for that. Now, I don't want you to go into this mindset of, well, everything could go wrong. I want you to have that, though, as kind of so you can say, well, that was interesting. What's next? And, you get the heckler that's in the audience, and having the ability to not let it distract you and just to be able to walk on. I'll have my clients do different exercises, and to learn to get no's. I was on a call with a young gal yesterday from India, and she shared with me about these experiences. And I said, when you got a no, did you take it personally? And she kind of admitted that she did. And I said, well, what if you said next? What does no really mean? Is it not now? Is it because I already have other plans? Is it because this doesn't interest me? And if it doesn't interest me, I learned to say next. I don't allow my energy, my creativity to be stifled by somebody who doesn't see outside of the box. There's so many people that are in a jar and they can't read their own label. There's a reason for that. So allow yourself to go get creative and lean into that as a strength, your fast thinking. Now, how can hyperfocus be a superpower as a weapon of creativity? Now, I know most everybody listening to me today knows who Jim Carrey is. I mean, the guy is so animated. And people who know me knows one of my favorite movies is The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and with Jim Carrey, of course. It is my Christmas tradition. So when I'm setting up the tree, The Grinch is on. We're watching it. And I love it because it brings a smile to my face. And the idea that he was different all through school. Jim Carrey struggled in school. He was constantly restless. So maybe you're feeling, hey, I'm connected with Jim Carrey. What could you do with that energy? So instead of trying to fit in traditional roles and models, Jim Carrey took his hyperfocus and his high energy thinking and he turned it into a legendary comedic performances. And as he began to tap into that, he said, not only can I make others laugh, but I can make myself laugh. And we know Jim Carrey set some major goals and he'd been refused, he'd been rejected several times. He didn't fit the mold, but he didn't let that stop him. Now, we see him in the place that he's at today. We see him as this iconic comedian who has this rubber-like face, rubber-like body. He can contort his body into different positions and different manners. And just his facial expressions are extremely humorous. So what could you do if you tapped into what once seemed like a struggle with ADHD and turn it into becoming iconic in your own right? Think about this. Have you ever had moments where you were so locked in and so passionate and so deeply focused that hours seemed like minutes and you look up at the clock and like time has just passed? You got so entranced into it. What if you took that hyper focus like Jim Carrey did and turn it into brilliance? And if Jim Carrey could do it, why can't you? See, this is what I want to say is that a lot of times that when we haven't been able to see something, we think that our vision is just too far out there. We should have been born at a different time. I say this all the time. I think I was born too early, or in some cases, I was born too late. I should have been born like in the 40s so that I could have grown up with Elvis music and having that all around me. And people laugh because, you know, as a kid, I loved Elvis. And it's thinking outside of that box. I would almost bet that Elvis had ADHD. I would almost bet that he had ADHD. Now, I can't prove that, and that's not part of my presentation today, but you know, as my mind begins to wander, okay, here, just let your creativity move forward. Now, what if your ADHD could make you a natural entrepreneur because you saw things outside of the box, outside of the conventional way? I tell people this all the time, that when God called me into ministry, when I was in ministry, the words that he gave me was, I'm going to use you in an unconventional way. And I'm going to do something through you that hasn't been done before. Did it come with ridicule? Did it come with being cast out? Yeah, it did, because it was different than the model that was in front of me. And I tell people that, you know, I just present what has been presented to me and my interpretation of it. My interpretation of it from my creative mind and thinking outside the box. Doing things different is going to come with some I don't want to say shunning, but I'm going to say that it's going to feel different to other people. And they're going to say, well, can't you just conform? Can't you just be like us? Can't you just do it the way that we do it? With ADHD, it's impossible. You want to do things different. Now, maybe you didn't know this, but Barbara Corcoran, the powerhouse entrepreneur from Shark Tank, she barely made it through high school because of her ADHD and dyslexia. She was rejected by corporate jobs. She was told that she wasn't good enough. She struggled with traditional work. So what did she do? Now, you've seen Shark Tank. If you haven't, just pull it up on YouTube. If you've been, you know, in another world for the last 20 years, maybe you don't know who she is. Go check her out. And she struggled with traditional work. So what did she do? She built an empire, a real estate empire from nothing. You see, she didn't accept the normal things that people want to say. She didn't accept it. She knew she was unique. She knew she was special in a positive way. And she didn't fight against the way that her brain worked. She used it to take bold risks. And this is the thing about ADHD. People with ADHD, they take risks. Sometimes it is ready, shoot, aim. Sometimes it's jump. Oh, is there water in the pool? Sometimes that happens. Sometimes we will make decisions and not have all the calculated risks. But sometimes when you calculate all the risks, you stay inside of a box. You stay what you think is safe. And I want to say, extend those calculated risks and see what is possible. So, what did she do? She built her way to success. So, have you ever felt like you don't fit in? That you don't fit into the traditional way of doing things? That you think outside the box? Maybe this means that you weren't designed to follow, but instead you were built to lead. Now, my fifth and final example is somebody you may or may not know, depending your age. If you're a football fan, if you grew up in the 70s, there's a football star that we all grew up with in the 70s. He's legendary, and he turned his ADHD into something that fueled his greatness. Terry Bradshaw from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he was an NFL quarterback. And I think, I don't follow football a lot, but I remember watching the game that the Steelers won their first Super Bowl. It was a very snowy day. We were walking through Sears, and I was in, I believe, the 7th grade. And Terry Bradshaw was the quarterback, and they won the Super Bowl. And Terry Bradshaw struggled with his focus in school for years, but on the football field, he could do amazing things. He was quick thinking, he was adaptable, and his hyper focus turned him into a 4-time Super Bowl champion. Now, maybe you're not a professional athlete, but you ask yourself, what are the environments that make you come alive? What gets you into the zone? You know, I tell people I have a unique gift of being able to read people. And I have the unique ability to take problems and turn them around for others, because I can see from the outside of the jar on the inside. I can see the ingredients from the outside. And sometimes we're so close to the environment. We need someone from the outside looking in to tell us, to share with us the unique strengths that we have. So, what is it that you could allow your ADHD to help you react quickly? Maybe perform at a higher level than what you're allowing yourself, because that's when you find your zone of genius. Now, if you've ever felt like you were too much or you didn't fit in, just know that neither did any of the examples that I shared today. And that's exactly why they succeeded. See, if we were all the same, if we all had the same color hair, we all had brown eyes, and we were only 5'5", and it would be a very short world. So what I'm saying is that embrace your uniqueness, embrace your identity, embrace the special things, the special characteristics that you have. And even if you don't have brown eyes, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. That's what makes the world beautiful. And you being in it is no accident. So don't think of yourself as less, because as we saw from the examples, these people, they are just like us. They had their moments where they wondered, I have to believe that when they got by themselves, they felt that there was something missing. This is the plight of humanity, is that we've always felt like there was something better on the outside of us. And so we put on the makeup, we put on the outfits, we get in the fancy cars, or we look at these influencers who give us a false narrative, and we think there's something wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. What I'm inviting you to is into your unique zone of personal genius. So I want you to think about something for a moment. I want you to think about maybe just one way that your ADHD has helped you rather than hurt you. You see, if we start to think of the positive, and this isn't Pollyanna, pie in the sky, kind of, there's no weeds in the garden, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm rich, and you're broke. Okay, that's not this. This is not false affirmations. This is an appreciation for who you are and how your ADHD, how your hypersensitivity, how your not being able to focus is actually helping you, how thinking outside of the box, how wanting the multiple colors, the 720 colors instead of just the 12 colors in a Crayola box. I want you to write it down, and not only write it down, but say it out loud. Because as you write it, you invite it, and as you speak it, you imprint into your mind, into your brain. And I want you to share your story. You can comment on this podcast on the YouTube channel. You can comment on Facebook, and I'll get the notification that you've commented. And if you find yourself at a place where you feel like you're really, really alone and you want help, by all means, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. 30-minute conversation. You can book a virtual call. If you go to my website, you can see that it's on here. You can go to my website and book a virtual call, 30 minutes. Nothing is for sale, and it's not going to cost you a dime. The only thing that's going to cost you is time to explore. And I don't want to say it's a cost. I want to say it's an investment. So you've heard these stories that I've shared today. These people were labeled as too much or not enough, but they didn't accept that narrative. You have a powerful brain, and that powerful brain has the ability to change the world in ways that no one else ever has and no one else ever can, because you're unique. You have your own zone of genius, and it's bringing that zone to others. Michael Jordan couldn't have won the basketball games by himself. He had an entire team and he had a coach. If you look at all the greats, and I've shared 5 of them today, they had other people that saw inside of them, saw their gift, saw their uniqueness. They didn't try to form them into like everyone else. So I want you to ask yourself a different question. Instead of asking, how can I be like everyone else? Ask yourself this: how can I become more like me? Because that's where your magic comes in. Now, as I bring this to a close, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. And I want you to think about this. You're standing at this bat. Did you close your eyes? Okay, I'm watching you, because if you didn't close your eyes, I'm going to wait. I'm just going to wait. Okay, thank you. So as you've got your eyes closed, don't open them. Don't open them. Just keep them closed. I want you to think about a vast, I'll describe it, vast open road where nobody else has been before. Nobody's walked. There's no paths. It's just a vast openness. There's no signs. There's no markers. There's no road maps. Just possibility stretching out beyond what the eye can see. Now, behind you, there's a bunch of these voices that you've heard. You need to focus. You should be more like, you can fill in the blank. And why can't you just sit still? Those are the voices of those behind you. I want you to ignore those for just a moment. And I want you to see beyond the moment that you're in right now. See what's ahead of you. See everything that you were made for. You see, every person that I mentioned today, Justin Timberlake, David Neilman, Jim Carrey, Barbara, Terry Bradshaw, none of these had a model to follow. They didn't fit into a mold. They didn't fit into the blueprint. So what did they do? They built their own blueprint. And now the world follows them. So what if that's you? What if the very thing that you have struggled with are actually the signs that are pointing you to something only you can create? What if the road ahead of you that's empty, it's waiting for your footsteps to shape it? What if you're not defined by what the world says about you? What if you're defined by what you choose to build and what you've been given? And trust me, what you've been given is extraordinary. So here's the question. It's not, how do I fit in? The question is, what will I create that has never been done before? Because see, the world doesn't need a bunch of copies of great originals. It needs great originals being created and expressing their uniqueness on a daily basis. The world is waiting for you to show up. And I just want to bring this today as a message of encouragement. That's what this podcast is about. It's an encouragement to embrace our uniqueness and the special gifts that we've been given. And ADHD is a very special gift, and it's an empowering gift. So until we meet the next time, I want to say continue to be outstanding, embrace your uniqueness, go set the path, create the path, and send me a message, send me a note, leave me a comment, reach out, and watch what the world is waiting for when you express who you are intended to be.